You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach, and that's Anna. Anna's here.
Yes.
Anna Peppard, Dr. Anna Peppard. Hey, Anna.
Hello. Nice to be here. Well, nice to be here on mic and not just in the background overhearing Adam's half of the conversation every week.
I gotta imagine it is an interesting dynamic on this podcast to only be listening to the good parts.
That's terrible. Well, Zach, I do have to say before we get started that it is lovely to see you, the real you again. It does seem like you werewolfed your werewolf and you are back.
Oh
to your
no,
normal self.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've just in the time since I've gotten much better at copying Zach's mannerisms. Just to be this, we need to be 100% clear, and this is true for the rest of the time. Zach is dead, and there is a werewolf inhabiting his skin who's also going by Zach. So just like, that's
for sure we were letting this bit
go.
No.
Until I forget about it.
You brought it up.
Yeah,
what?
You did
Listen.
right now. Thank you.
Yeah,
Ian.
I was trying to like hit the reset button, but apparently not.
Like, which
Hold
is
on.
better? Like, inflicting on the listeners the image of like a soaking wet Zachary Jenkins hauling his naked self out of the skin of a werewolf, or just accepting that this is him now.
I guess that's true.
Hold on. Some of us have been
I
exercising
think
and look better soaking wet, naked, crawling out of the werewolf.
You look great, Zach. You always look great.
Looking great, werewolf Zach.
Doing what I
Whatever
can.
you are.
Do you know who else always looks great?
Are you going to say Meggan, who has a variety of different shapes and sizes?
Yeah, and she always looks fantastic. I don't know why you're criticizing her looks, Adam.
I'm not.
She's the best.
I'm saying she has a variety. She is by nature a shapeshifter. And
Sometimes.
well, yeah, I guess sometimes people don't know what her power set is. And
Sometimes
people
that
do.
includes me.
Well, it's hard sometimes when you're reading to figure it out, you know?
So
But yeah, we are talking about Meggan this week, which is why Dr. Anna Peppard is joining us as our resident Excalibur expert.
I believe I was originally invited to come on the Werewolves episode, and then I went on like I was gonna say 10-minute rant, but more like a 20-minute rant about like Meggan to Adam, and he's like, "Do you want to just come on that episode instead?" I was like, "Clearly, I do have a lot of opinions, so maybe that's better."
I figured you would, and that's exciting because we love Meggan, and it's fun to talk about this. And honestly, these were some fun stories for me to go back and read. And before we dive into it, I want to thank the person that made this all possible.
Yeah, who was that?
That's the original author, Alan Davis, obviously, who created this
Alan
character.
Davis.
Just like
Supporter of the pod.
Supporter
Oh,
of the
dang it! I
pod.
screwed up. I got my Allens wrong. The bit doesn't work if I say Alan Davis. Alan Davis likes to be credited for things. I meant Alan Moore. I was doing an Alan Moore riff, and then because he doesn't want to be credited on things like Miracle Man, and actually it's just mostly Miracle Man. He's not in any of these. He just happened to create Meggan.
Did he though? Is Alan Moore the writer of this first story?
No, but Meggan
No.
Meggan appears in the stuff with the Fury. In the
Oh,
Jasper
that's
form.
right. Yeah,
Like,
she's kind
not
of in the
a lot.
background. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he's
They kinda
setting her
show
up to be something.
Yes. Okay.
Anyway, as with all things, I thank Alan Moore for really inventing comics and inventing Meggan as part of comics.
Inventing 9-panel grids, despite not being an artist.
Honestly, dope move. Love it, actually. That's awesome. Alan Moore's not in this, and we don't actually
Thank
have to thank him because he hasn't given... You and me have different Alan Moore opinions, and that's fine.
Yeah, I don't like Alan Moore, but I do like his Captain Britain.
Yeah, and generally, like once a month, I think, should I read Watchmen again? It's been a few years.
And the
It's
answer to
been
that
like-
is absolutely not. You
I
have
think-
better things to do with your time.
Honestly, Adam, I don't know
Are you
if
going
I
to say
do.
you don't? Because you do. You absolutely do.
Dave Gibbons pretty good.
Go for a walk, eat a snack,
Yeah.
read thousands of the other comics that exist.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, fair. Also,
So many better ones than Watchmen, like literally all of them.
Oh wow.
this you're putting really strong opinions out there for what is at minimum a well-crafted book.
What Watchmen?
Adam's trying to impress me. He knows I'm a bit of an Alan Moore hater, so he's trying to outdo me.
No, I don't like Alan Moore. We have this in common. I have spoken about this on the pod. I feel like if you want to reread Watchmen, just go read Jasper's Warp. It's a much better comic.
I say this with so much love to Jasper Thorpe. A comic that I truly adore and that I want to say I have said is the 15th best X-Men comic to ever exist.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, buddy.
No.
Jasper's Warp doesn't have a comic that is half the comic one way, and then it's the exact same panels and symmetry the other way around, and it's all a comic about symmetry. It doesn't. Jasper's Warp doesn't do that.
Yeah, but it does. It is drawn by Alan Davis, and it's much more fun.
Dave
for
Gibbons.
me.
Dave.
Not as good as Alan Davis. Sorry.
Oh god.
Everyone looks bad compared to Alan Davis. That's just like truth.
It's because Alan Davis is better.
Alan Davis is pretty darn good, especially in the 80s.
Yeah. Listen, this is a bad idea, or we're going to do an hour on why Adam doesn't like Alan Moore, and that's not what the listeners want to hear. So
next episode, we're going to just do a deep dive into From Hell, and I'm really excited about that personally. No, I'm kidding. We're not doing that. Alan Moore did not write a lot of X-Men comics, which honestly makes his life better.
Zach, who do we really have to thank for this week? Because it's not Alan Moore.
It's not Alan Moore. It's Buddy Nooning. Buddy went over to patreon.com/Battle of the Atom. Reached deep down into their hearts and pocketbooks. Tossed a couple of coins into our coffers. If you want to be like Buddy, just do that. Just go over to patreon.com/Battle of the Atom. It's $5. You know what $5 gets you these days?
Poof.
Half an
One
egg.
Half an egg.
No, it gets you about five. It gets you $5 will get you about 10 eggs by current pricing.
Okay. All right.
Which
depends
is-
on which kinds of eggs you're buying.
The 30 rack of eggs. Like it's 30 rack of PBR, 30 rack of eggs. That's a good breakfast right there.
Okay.
If you
Oh,
if
boy.
you if you do if you do the 10 egg challenge and support us so we can buy 10 eggs, enough to feed my family for a breakfast. We'll one breakfast a month. You'll a family in Indiana will be able to have one egg-based breakfast a month with your $5. And on top of that, we will do an episode around one of your entire suggestions. Just a whole thing that you wanted. And Buddy wanted Meggan, and darn it, we're giving him Meggan, and we're giving bonus Meggan because Anna's here. And Anna, you have opinions on Meggan. Before we jump into the stories, are there any general opinions about Meggan you want to just get out there?
Oh boy. I mean, I did many episodes of a podcast in which I talked about Meggan every week. So I've already talked a lot about Meggan in my life.
Hey, Anna, for those of us out there that may not know what you're talking about, if folks want to get deep into your Meggan opinions, what was that podcast that you did a bunch of episodes on about Meggan and other based Excalibur?
People should go check out the Ogasho Galiowa podcast, recapping with two fellow academics every single issue of the classic Marvel series Excalibur, the original volume anyway. I think she's a fascinating character who is almost always handled in ways that are not how I would handle her, which again is a very fan fiction-y opinion, and I acknowledge that. It's just that she's one of those characters that I love and so rarely actually love on the page, which I know is a weird thing to say. It's sort of like the character in my mind is better than the character, but it's just she's a character with a lot of potential. Like the idea of this female character who's shaped by her empathy with other people can be a really powerful gendered story, like about expectations and about the way women in particular are socialized to adapt to people's expectations. The problem is what starts as this kind of complicated, like textually, I would say, like at the very least emotionally abusive relationship with Brian Braddock, which is a very interesting intersection with the nature of Megan's powers, becomes an OTP true love story, which has never not been creepy to me. And people try to change Megan's powers because they think like her empathy powers are not powerful enough. And to me, they often confuse the kind of like the power of her as a character who like metaphorizes gender in a really interesting way with like, you know, because that's too feminine, we have to give her more masculine powers because that's sexist. And I'm like, oh, you're getting it so confused. There's just a lot going on with this character. I do like when she's a shapeshifter. I like when she's like a gender bendy, fun character like that. I just think that people want her to be something different every time someone takes a crack at this character. And yeah, I don't think even Claremont knew what to do a lot of the time, although I like sort of the seeds of her when she is this character who's sort of defined by the competing expectations of people and trying to negotiate her agency within there. I'm just will never not be satisfied that the culmination of that agency was deciding that she's OTP with Brian Braddock. But it is what it is, and we have to live with this.
I echo a lot of your opinions on this. I do think at this point, we'll get into this with one of the stories that we're covering today, I think. But I think at this point, now you can take what's there and then use it to tell an interesting story. And I really hope that we get more of that. But we're going to start with this Meggan reader. I think it is a good culmination of all the things Meggan with Mighty World of Marvel 14 through 16. This is part of the Alan Davis Captain Britain. Steve Craddock, who is actually the letterer of all things, does some script work on this, as well as Mike Collins doing some script work on 16. The rest of it's Davis, baby.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because this is right after all the Jasper's Warp stuff has finished, and Alan Davis doesn't know what to do with the book.
Well, you know, you've got Meggan kind of in the background of the Alan Moore stuff, and then now she's coming into the foreground, and we've got a Captain Britain that like kind of wants to be a superhero but is bad at it. So like right off the, you know,
To be fair, that is Captain Britain in a lot of
in general.
things.
Yeah. But I mean, like he starts these 3 stories by killing a kid by accident because he like is wrestling Meggan in a construction site, and you know, has to immediately go and have tea with their family, who are like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, you killed our son. It wasn't really your fault. You seem like a nice guy, which is a weird reaction.
The reaction is basically like, we didn't like that son that much anyway. Don't blame yourself, Brian.
He wasn't our favorite, you know.
We're
Brian's
not
always
exaggerating
failing
on
upwards.
That is what happens.
That's just what happens. I think Megan's interesting as she first appears because she's described as a werewoman.
Yeah, well, it's important for listeners who've never read these stories just to describe Meggan. She has monstrous features with sort of like antenna eyebrows. She has werewolf-like features, sharp teeth,
Bat wings.
Yeah. So claws, you know, long kind of needle-like claws that are coming out. So this has kind of been her form in the underground before she's come up to the surface. And yet Alan draws her like both with equal parts monstrous kind of werewolf energy, but also like she watches TV and is filled with glee and is like excited when she gets to see Captain Britain on TV. So you're getting kind of a little glimpse into all the sides of this character.
Meggan does get like more than one person dead in her like first like big appearance here, which is, I feel like something that doesn't normally, that would be like an inciting incident for a superhero character, and it's just not with her.
Well, I don't know if I would blame it on Meggan necessarily. Like Megan's just kind of doing her thing.
The drunk guy's kind of her fault.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, she does attack this drunk guy. But the fact that this kid dies by getting impaled by scaffolding is definitely Captain Britain's fault. And then, of course, they go and like have tea with this family who's just lost their son.
Tea and sympathy.
And get attacked by, who are these folks again? Who are these guys with the like orange spacesuits that just show up and like blow up? This is another funny thing. Like they have tea. their son has just died, and then their apartment gets blown up by these like mystery villains, and they're just like, yeah, you know what? Somebody will have to rebuild our, like, we have house insurance. Like,
No. The state is going to rebuild
yes,
their
the
house.
council.
The council.
Yes. We'll be out of the slums at last. It's like, okay.
To be clear, these orange suited guys who just appear out of nowhere, attack, and then just as quickly disappear are unnamed bounty hunters per the Marvel Wikia, and they are never referenced again.
Yeah, they reference a different Captain Britain when they attack at Brian's mansion, but it's still relatively unclear as to what's going on, because Betsy is able to use her powers and just shut them down on their second attack. But it's a brief couple of stories here, but I love the artwork. And I do wish that I was reading this in black and white. I have, the trade paperback from the early 90s.
I also have that trade paperback from the early 90s.
Yeah, we're looking at the same one. And,
like
the coloring is nice, but
I didn't feel like I got to reread it as closely as I wanted to because I was scared of bending Adam's trade paperback. He warned me multiple times.
Well, you have a tendency to kind of like bend back
If it was my
spines.
book, I 100% would have bent the cover around backwards.
Yeah.
Because books are made to be read.
Yeah.
Well, I can read them, be nice to them.
Adam, if you want, we can slab that. We can encase it in something. That way it's always pristine forever.
It's been sitting on the coffee table like all week, and the amount of times I've almost put a beverage on it and then been like, Adam wouldn't want me to do that. Not like I do to my books.
I do. If we're talking about that 90s trade paperback, I do think it's buck wild that they did like make one for the Davis Excalibur and didn't make one for the Alan Moore Excalibur that is just as important to Captain Britain. That's just as important to Captain Britain and also kind of better.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it may have been like a rights issue. I don't know if that was like...
Moore was fighting about rights a little bit. Yeah,
so that's what I always suspected as to why we didn't get it. But it is a darn shame because it would be great to have both, a matching pair to split up the volumes. So 3 very brief vignettes here. And I agree, like Alan Davis is kind of scrambling a little bit to see where these characters go next. But it is really fun to see Meggan as monstrous street urchin / feeling weird when it's the full moon is out, all this stuff. And she's kind of a delightful character, despite the fact that she's a troublemaker and is getting people into some messes.
She is a locus of exuberant violence, and I love that for her.
Yeah, I think this is something that's missing in like her later appearances, is that like because of her giddiness and her excitedness and her feral quality to her, we kind of lose that once she assumes the I'm a beautiful princess kind of look that she gets, that we all remember Meggan for. I think she's probably more interesting character as the more monstrous version, but we don't get this as much again. As a man,
I think it would be interesting if that was something that was more fluid for her, like because it feels like she is completely stuck in the very like high femme, blonde hair, blue eye, beautiful girlfriend role, and she doesn't get a chance to. Most writers don't get a chance to move her into any other state, where here she can be just this little gremlin, and that's fun, and I think that could be fun for her.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit when we did Jasper's Warp, that we didn't really feel like writers after this, even Claremont, quite captured the essence of what this character was in her original form, which is fine. I mean, the character can evolve, but I mean, would you agree with that?
Well, I don't want to it's going to come up in one of the other stories that we're talking about, but like, to me, one of the reasons why the kind of like Nightcrawler flirtation is interesting for Meggan is because, maybe it's a crush, maybe it's her responding to his desires, maybe it's also her responding to his comfort and his monstrousness, which is not something that she's ever experienced. So like, there's a possibility there to like, have her finding joy in like diverse types of embodiment, which is not something that Brian gives her because he doesn't think she's good enough for him unless she looks like him.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's like,
Which then becomes
yeah.
the standard version of the
Yeah.
character that everybody uses. Which
and like, you know, Davis later does a thing where like her true form is sort of a version of her blonde self that's just kind of
Yeah, it's an
more of a
even
fairy
prettier
thing.
version of her existing
even
self.
sparklier. And you're sort of like, we had a lot of conversation about that on Gosh Golly Wow, about like, what would we have wanted her true form to be? And I think we all kind of didn't want that. Like, it was just kind of a boring choice. But I mean, again, this is kind of going deep in the character's kind of further lore, but she's certainly one of the things, like, you know, the ideal Meggan of my mind is a character that takes joy in being a shapeshifter and the kind of like, you know, once again, diverse forms of embodiment that are available to her. And I think we are going to see some of that in like one of the stories we're going to talk about for today. So
I forgot the other one that we were talking about until I read it. I was like, oh, this is actually delightful. This one will be
Yes.
fun. But we'll get there. We'll get there in a minute. One fun Meggan fact. Did you know that they were trying to get the codename Tapestry over for her on trading cards?
No. I mean, I know the Gloriana thing that will come up in the second story, but I never heard that Tapestry was one of them.
Yeah, it was printed on a 1995 Fleer Ultra trading card. It's a bad trading
look
card
at
of
that.
Meggan, by the way. Though she is turning into a tree.
Into the tree.
Ooh, yeah.
Her arm is one of the branches.
And her feet.
I don't like that. Yeah,
I don't-
That's weird.
Again, no one knows what Meggan's powers are, and I think that's beautiful.
Well, I think that's another thing is that, you know, this character starts in these British published books that maybe people didn't have access to, you know, and so
Yeah, Chris Claremont, and only Chris Claremont had access to these books.
yeah. So I don't know how much that really affects everything. And you'll notice we didn't get too in depth with the story because not a lot happens. You know,
Betsy does feel bad that Tom Lennox died.
Yes. Yeah. So it's really just fallout from Jasper's warp. And Alan Davis's art is incredible. It's absolutely beautiful. Some really great page layouts and some fun action, some great facial acting. I thought it was outstanding.
I was going to say the one thing I really do like is him knowing that they are about to spin this off into like Captain Britain as its own magazine.
Mhm.
Because again, Mighty World of Marvel was a reprint magazine. There was some new content in there that was British only, but like they also had reprints of X-Men and the Micronauts in these issues. But the Captain Britain magazine was going to be led by Captain Britain and have like Night Raven and a bunch of other stuff that was more focused on the Britain stuff. So it does end with a really good final page where Slaymaster is attacking. You see the Crazy Gang and Di Thomas, and like you get a fun vignette of what is to come.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite.
Yeah.
That's
Really
my
good
favorite.
preview, you know, of what's on the way.
To be honest, I think that these couple of stories do, there's a lot of like narrative heavy lifting here, and you know, a lot of clumsy putting the plot in the mouth of the characters going on.
Mhm.
But at the same time, given the extent of the stuff that you would have needed to catch up on in order to understand the context in which this story is taking place, like it's pretty economical. Like the first page is like the Jasper's warp happened, this person died, this happened to Betsy, like I'm here now, it's been like 6 years and 6 months between various things, and it's like it is a lot of heavy lifting. And then like, yeah, you get that final page tease of like things are going to get going again, and I found myself kind of excited. I mean, I've read these stories before, but like getting to that final page tease that you brought up, I was like, all right, like I remember that stuff that's going to happen that I've read before, and it did make me kind of excited.
This didn't happen in these quick stories, you know?
Well,
Lot of
what
setup.
has happened over the quick time that we've been doing this podcast is that we've ranked a lot of stories. Anna, you've helped us
many,
rank
Zach.
more than 4 of them. We have ranked 1,005 different X-Men stories from best to
That's
worst
too
on
many.
our big old list. It is too many
Crazy.
stories.
Mhm.
The best story, of course, is House of X Powers of 10. The 250th best story is those 2 issues of X Factor right before the Mutant Massacre. The 500th best story is A+X number 5, which has an Iron Fist dupe team up and a Loki and Sinister team up, where Sinister has the second best gun he's ever made. Adam, do you know what the best gun he's ever made is?
That would be the face hugger gun from Aliens versus Avengers number 3.
That's the gun that shoots face huggers. Anna, did you also find that as delightful as we did?
I believe I did read that over Adam's shoulder.
As I was guffawing, I'm like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, it's because it's really funny. It's really funny that he has a gun that shoots face huggers from Alien, the movie Alien.
pretty
Number
great.
756, House 100. Number 1000 is X Nation 2099. And 1005 is 2099 World of Tomorrow. Hey, folks, those late 2099 books are not good.
They are terrible. They are terrible. But this is good. This is good comics, but it's not up to the standard of what we got before it, and I think what comes after it. This is just connective tissue with like really good art. So I would say it's in the top 500. So I would probably put it somewhere in the 400s.
So we've got, I'm trying to see where we have, okay, yeah, because all of our Captain Britain stuff is way higher than that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 400 is Here Comes Tomorrow. It's not better than Here Comes Tomorrow.
No, so down at 487, we have the Return of the Warpies, which is
Return of the
another
Warpies.
Alan, and I think that's better.
Yeah, I think my thought is that Alan Davis has improved as a writer at that point. Like, even if I don't love the Warpies, he feels like he knows what he's doing better.
Is this better than the first appearance of Havoc at 491?
No, that has genre-defining art in it. I don't think that this is. Yes, I don't think that. I'm trying to look at this list. This is probably as good as Cable versus X-Force from X-Force 49 and 50.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think this is probably better than the Schism arc of Generation Hope at 496.
That Schism arc does have that page where Transonic points a gun at Hope and says, actually, you're going to let this small, abused child go to a regular school and not be a child soldier.
I mean, that's fun. I just don't
That
like
page is pretty good. No one likes Transonic. Anna, do you have strong feelings on Transonic? I shouldn't say no one likes Transonic when I know Adam and I don't, but other people may like Transonic.
I do not have strong feelings.
That's the general consensus, that no one has strong feelings on Transonic.
What is the 95 X-Men annual?
I don't know. That's not a good.
495.
That's not a good. The fact that I don't know is not a good sign
I
for
feel
that
like this is
Schism.
better than that.
I'm looking at. Oh, the 95 annual is one of the multiple times that one of the Guthries has become a anti-mutant racist.
Oh,
and tried to
right,
sell out
right.
their
They
family.
joined. Yeah, I remember that. This
That's
is better
happened
than
more
that, I
than
feel like.
once.
Oh.
That
Yeah.
happened very recently, actually. I didn't care for it.
I would say this is definitely below 492, which is the Peru arc of Cable, 97 to 100.
I would say below that, below New X-Men Hellions, which is a pretty decent miniseries, but above New Avengers The Collective, which is incoherent but does a good thing in killing Alpha Flight. So
Great. Okay, so this is our new 490 for the I don't know. What is this? The Mighty World of Marvel, Volume 2, 14 to 16. The Fallout to the Jasper's Warp. And
a quick Alpha Flight question for you, since you just wrote a great article about Alpha Flight very recently.
Hit me.
Do you think Alpha Flight's new decision of saying, actually, we're going to change the system from the inside and work with the fascists is a good idea?
Oh, boy.
well, I don't think they have a choice, Zach. I think in McKay, it's like positioned that they're still prisoners.
But prisoners can just sit in a cell. It's fine.
I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
You don't have to.
Listen, not out of character with other things Alpha Flight have done at other times in their history.
Completely in line with Alpha Flight.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to like Alpha Flight, so, you know.
I don't know. There's a
We
lot
know.
of people that keep trying to tell me that it's good.
Oh, I think I've experienced this recently as well, especially because they just appeared, but whew, not my favorite.
A lot of people want you to like Alpha Flight.
Man, Adam's drinking the haterade this week. Like, I'm just like, that sucks.
He's just trying to be cool in front of me.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Cool.
Are we going chronological, or do you want to?
Yeah,
go...
let's go chronological, because I want to talk about this next story, and I think Anna does too, and I bet
fun.
Adam does.
I loved this. So let's get into Excalibur number 28. This is from Excalibur Volume 1. It is written by a person I was not expecting to be a writer, which is inker extraordinary Terry Austin, and penciled by Colleen Duran and inked by Brett Blevins. This is quite the creative team, and this is a really fun one. The Night They Tore Down the Gilded Lady.
This is coming at the point where Chris Claremont is trying to leave and failing to leave Excalibur, and they have like 6 months of fill-ins, and then he does his last little bit before they can convince Lobdell to take over the book.
I'm fine with that because I'm glad that this issue exists. It's a hoot.
This one is a hoot. It's just like, is the one with N the Last Man a hoot? Claremont did write that one, or the Nth Man, excuse me.
Oh, I don't know. Is that a hoot?
I mean, that's the one that it's got Sienkiewicz inking somebody, or does he draw it as well?
Sienkiewicz inks Barry Windsor Smith.
That's right. That's right. It's a weird combo.
But it also has Nth, the Ultimate Ninja, not Larry Hama's third best ninja creation.
I believe it also has Nightcrawler ripping his pants in half with his tail and having to hold his pants on for most of the issue. So that's fun.
Whoa.
Oh, I don't remember that. It sounds like something you would remember, frankly.
So for folks who have not read this issue, basic premise is that Brian and Meggan are going to revisit an old haunt of Brian's, which is being sold to they're
a Yank developer.
Yes, Yank develop. The neighborhood's being gentrified. I like that they use that term.
Mm-hmm.
And
on one hand, I get that. On the other hand, really hard for me to sympathize with the British when people are coming in and destroying their culture.
It does seem to be a lovely bar, but this is a weird thing for Brian to be doing as a date with Meggan, as he does not drink anymore and I don't know, is this the best environment for the both of them? I'm not sure.
He doesn't drink, and he makes a comment that's very important to this story, that Meggan has also never drank.
Well, and you said this is how he canonically announces his sobriety, correct?
Yeah, there isn't really an on-panel story about Brian quitting drinking. This is one of the only times that he explicitly says it in this run of comics.
So he's getting a lot of pressure from the fellow customers to drink up, my lad. And so Brian's having a tough time, but luckily Meggan is willing to take on the role of Brian and drink for him. That's not going super well.
Okay, let's slow down and explain to the listeners what actually happens here. Meggan goes to the washroom. Brian's being pressured to drink. She comes back, shapeshifts into his twin brother, although still wearing her low-cut Meggan costume, giving her some nice masculine
fitties right out.
And then Brian kind of looks up at her with like wonder and, I don't know, arousal? Who knows? I don't want to like apply things to Brian. It's a mysterious expression. But anyway, he's marveling at the very least.
There was a whole lot of, I sure hope this doesn't awaken anything in me in that gaze. And I can appreciate that, Brian.
And we are then introduced to two of my new favorite characters that
best characters?
I am shocked and appalled that no one has ever brought these two characters back because they are amazing. That's right, folks. We're talking about Cooter and Bash.
So great.
Great names.
So Cooter and Bash. Bash is a little meatball of a man.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like he would be fighting somebody at all times. Cooter is an American young lady who is using her sexuality to get what she wants, and also tricking stupid people into buying rocks that they are convinced are gold because of her. And I love that she's trying to pull off this scam, because it's a very low stakes scam, all things considered.
It is, but it's such a fun power that she is able to take ordinary objects and make them look like something that the person who she's trying to con would want. And so she just has a bag of rocks, and she's basically using her powers to suggest they're gold. And people are like, yeah, I'll buy some gold, you know?
Her powers don't work though on people who are too honest or have no imagination. And there's a fun editor's note that says it doesn't work on Brian because he has no imagination.
Yes. And it doesn't work on Meggan because she's too good.
honest.
She's too pure.
Yeah.
You know, she's too honest. So, of course, this devolves into a really great brawl bar fight. Everybody's throwing down, and, you know, Meggan is going back and forth between sort of what her normal character look is at this point to the very bulky, muscular. I think she describes it as
Her She-Hulk form.
her She-Hulk size,
Yeah.
which is fun. And Brian does not save the day. Brian basically gets knocked unconscious, and Meggan is the one that saves the day.
Meggan is the one who saves the day, although, you know, lending credence to my theory that this is always somewhat of an abusive or at the very least problematic relationship. She clearly feels the pressure to save face by telling Brian he achieved success when in fact she is the one who did so. And I'm like, oh boy, this is just what she does every day of her dang life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing that gets interesting about this is a lot of Meggan's like body dysmorphia that's happening here, because she's incredibly comfortable with being this giant hulking lady. She's incredibly more or less comfortable being a mermaid. She's more confused about how she didn't turn herself into a mermaid, but Cooter made everyone
Look
think
like
that
a
she was a
mermaid.
mermaid.
Right.
But then she eventually goes into her more like monstrous form, which does what I think is the most interesting thing about this is Cooter then makes her see something that she wants to see, actually.
Mhm.
And it's Nightcrawler being very sexy and holding up flowers and champagne with his shirt wide open.
Mm-hmm.
She first sees Brian. No, not Brian. So good.
It's
Yeah.
it's
looking
fascinating.
great
And I don't know how much of, like, I think an interesting read of this, and this story never really matters in the future, it's just a fun one, but I think an interesting read of this is her saving face with Brian is somewhat out of guilt that
Yeah.
she is like, oh, I do have these really strong feelings for Nightcrawler, and I don't know how to properly process them.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing for me about Meggan and Brian is that if we were going to do them as a real messed up couple, I'd actually be okay with that. It's just the like OTP true love version of their relationship cuz like I like them being a messy couple. Like they are together for complicated reasons,
Yes.
you know, and they are a bit toxic, well, more than a bit toxic, and that can be really interesting. It's just people kind of forget about that and they're like, oh, no, it's true love. He treats her like a princess. It's great. I'm like, was that ever them? But
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a reason why Mark Guggenheim's the one that gave them a baby.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Friend of the show, Mark Guggenheim.
on last episode, the Gilded Lady does get completely demolished, much to the chagrin of the buyer. And yet everybody gets to get out free and they're fine because Cooter is able to convince the police and everybody nearby that, you know, these bricks that used to be the Gilded Lady are all gold. And so I cannot fathom. I mean, I guess it's just because Excalibur isn't as widely read as other X books, but this is such a fun pair of villains. I would love to see them come back.
I love Cooter. I love that she is just unabashedly low stakes evil. That's
Yeah.
fun. She's not, no one's getting really hurt. She's just having a blast with it. Like, she's winking on that cover, pointing at it like, y'all seeing this? And that's her entire energy. And it's incredible. I like the transformation stuff in here. I think it's interesting and speaks to Meggan's character. Like, right at the end of the fight, she gets her most hulked out. And specifically, her dress has been like ripped to shreds at this point. And her legs in her entire like bottom half, they are very masculine. They are giant, they are hairy, and she's incredibly comfortable in that skin. And I think that is a really good way to visually signify how Meggan feels about her powers and like how fluid she is in a way that I don't know if, like, I don't think you would do that with Mystique, you know, or any other shapeshifter like character. I think Meggan plays a very interesting role in this.
Well, yeah, I love the joy that she gets to take in her body in this issue, which isn't always something that she gets to do. Because often when she is shape changing, it's because she's being manipulated or controlled. And there's a little bit of that here. But I think it's really important that she has the reaction where, why am I shape shifting into a mermaid? Oh, I see. That's because that's Cooter's powers. If I concentrate, I can shape myself into werewolf form and then take control of this fight. Although there's still the again, sad thing, but if we're going to do a complicated, toxic version of Meggan and Brian's relationship, you mentioned when she's in her sort of gender bendy kind of quote unquote masculine form when she punches out Bash, and then she's just in time. Here comes Brian and switches back into pretty Meggan form and is doing a cutesy pose right.
And she's very demure and very shameful of her body there in a way that she's not when she's strong and hairy and punching this guy out. And there's so much, just this issue alone, there's so much really good visual storytelling that is happening here. Obviously, Colleen Dorian is fantastic. Long history in comics of just being freaking good at things.
Yeah, and I think Blevins is a really good combo for her.
Absolutely.
Of inking on top of it. But kudos to Terry Austin for just knocking this issue out. There is so much great character work here. It's a really fun issue. I found myself chuckling as it went along, and I think he nails the actual characters very, very well.
Can I say one positive thing about Brian Braddock, because I've been very negative on him? When we did this,
if you would like to,
when we did this,
you have to.
When we did this on GGW, it was I think we all agreed that this was the most we'd kind of bought into the Brian and Meggan relationship and possibly any issue of Excalibur, because they actually have a little bit of fun together here, particularly at the beginning with the flirting when they're flying around. And I was like, okay, that's nice to actually get a little hint of that. And I did appreciate the little flirty line that he had where, she's like, somebody pinch me, I must be dreaming. And Brian's like, glad to oblige, ma'am. Which of the extremities does Madame desire to have tweaked?
Yeah.
And I was like, come on, that's
funny.
That's some fun, little flirtiness between them. And then, Colleen Duran's artwork where Meggan is so exuberant through that sequence, and they really look like they're enjoying their little play fighting. Yeah, that made me buy into the idea of them more than I usually do, which is saying a lot.
I think Duran's the secret sauce here. It is. There are not a lot of issues of Excalibur that don't have Claremont or Austin on it that hit the same tone as the stuff that people love about the book. Or Claremont or Alan Davis, excuse me.
Right.
And I really think this one does, and that's all to its credit.
Yeah, so where should this go on the big list? We just talked about which arc of...
Hey, Adam, is it wild that we have 3 different stories on this list that we just have subtitled The Bar One?
Well, Excalibur 91 is the bar one. That's at 339. This is better. This is a lot better than that.
This is a lot better than that. It's a lot better than 509, which is Wolverine Volume 3, Number 6, the one where Nightcrawler and Wolverine go to a bar.
Yeah.
I will say it is not better, because I've said all 3, and someone's going to be sitting there in their car saying, what's the other one? It's not better than Uncanny X-Men 183, the bar one where Juggernaut fights Colossus with a bar.
No, it is absolutely not. That's an all-timer there. We have Mojo Mayhem at 138. Better or worse? Anna, what do you think?
Listen, Mojo Mayhem is a polarizing story. Andrew DeMann has convinced me that it's better than I originally thought, but...
Oh, right. You don't like Mojo Mayhem.
You don't like Mojo Mayhem?
I don't not like it. I do think that I've been talked into a deeper reading of it that I agree with intellectually, but maybe don't feel in my heart as much as I should.
Listen, I feel Art Adams in my heart, though. And that's...
Yes. I think that's the big thing why it is such a memorable story, is because it's an Art Adams story. But I think this is better than Mojo Mayhem. I think it's doing more character work than that is. So I think I would. You don't think so?
That's high praise.
This is a really good comic.
High praise.
If I
Adam,
want a really good Excalibur comic, this is what I want.
I want to be clear, Adam. This puts it above Resurrection of Magneto, a comic that you defended with me very fiercely.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'll say I was going 300s or 400s with this one. I was not going that high, but
Oh,
up to
okay.
you guys.
Okay.
It's your
I-
show.
Zach, where were you gonna go? Maybe I'm going too high.
I was also not going to go as high.
Then maybe I
think
need
this-
to retemper my
I don't know. It's 2-on-1. I like if we can gang up on Adam. That sounds fun.
Oh.
What were you
I
going to
think-
compare it to?
Well, I was looking. I think this is better than 306, which is the Werewolves 2-parter of Excalibur Volume 4. But what's it?
This is better than that.
Yeah, it is better than that. It's better than the first 4 issues of X-Men the manga.
Yep, that's a
Which
286.
That's a 286 and is more interesting than good, probably, if we're being real with it. Though I think that one's pretty solid. Like, okay, 240 is the Generation X Underground special.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
This is
I
better
don't-
than that.
I don't know. I'm in an interesting spot with that. I think I like the Underground special, but it also hits a lot of buttons for me.
I think this is better than the Prego Brood arc of Wolverine and the X-Men at 237.
That's another one that I keep seeing on the list and like, this is wild where it's
That's
at.
insanely high.
You know why that's there? That's not there because of the Kitty Pryde story. That's there because of the Wolverine Quentin Quire story that's in there.
Right.
Nick Bradshaw's art is delightful. The pregnancy thing,
It was not great.
it's buck wild.
I feel like this is like on par with like a 218, the New Mutant Summer special. Like this is just a fun classic comic.
Before we move away from that point, just like a little, like, as the female voice on the pod right now, they really need to stop doing stories where like a female character is magically pregnant. Say there's no possibility I could be 8 months pregnant because this just happened in a day, and everybody laughs at them and disbelieves their understanding of pregnancy. Like, I mean, it's happened a few times, and maybe we shouldn't keep doing that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would third that. That's I know my opinion is the important one on this one.
Let's
But
just not do callbacks to Avengers 200. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Let's avoid that at nearly all costs.
Just had to put in a little anti-plug for that story. Anyway, please continue.
Okay. All right. Is this better than Battle of the Atom at 231?
Yes. I mean, listen, Battle of the Atom's uneven.
Flawed.
I would put it above Battle of the Atom, but below giant size little Marvel AVX.
Okay, that's fine with me. I mean, this is kind of where you wanted it in the list, right?
This is way higher than I thought this would go, but it's a story I enjoy, so go for it.
All right. This
Anna over here thinking that we can't also enjoy Excalibur from time to time. You don't just,
know,
it's
man.
not just your comic, Anna. Other dudes can like Excalibur too.
This is a lot of fun. So this was Excalibur Volume 1, number 28, The Night They Tore Down the Gilded Lady at 230. Good showing. This next book's not going to rank this high, folks. This is what, Zach?
This is Captain Britain and MI13 Annual Number 1, The Harrowing of Hell, and also
Sure.
British Magic. It's Paul Cornell. Mike Collins does The Harrowing of Hell, and one of my personal favorites, Adrian Alfona, does British Magic. Anna, are you Captain Britain in the MI13 head?
I've read a smattering of it, and I had read this story before because it has a Nightcrawler appearance, so of course I had to have read it.
You should read the part where Pete Wisdom fights Dracula on the moon.
Yes,
that part's pretty good.
Dan Grote has recommended that vociferously, I believe.
That one's good.
I feel like before we talk about either of these short stories in this annual, we do need to address the...
Oh, when Adam was doing the album art for this, he was going to use this Greg Land cover, and I was like, Adam, come on, you can't. Anyway, he did use the Colleen Duran cover. I was like, that's a great cover. But
It's
when we were talking about this before the pod, I was like, yeah, I have a bone to pick with, the weird sexiness of Greg Land, where he's drawn tentacles on this cover, but clearly has no idea why that might be a sexual motif, because he has just posed his generic female body in front of tentacles. And as I was complaining about this to Adam, Adam was like, were there tentacles? I didn't even notice. And I was like, that's the point.
No, and then I what did I say? I said, I have face blindness, but for Greg Land art. Like when I see a Greg Land piece now, my
friend of the show.
decision-
We have to repeat
Oh,
it. He was
right.
on the last
He
episode.
was on
Friend of
last
the show, Greg
episode.
Land.
But I just have my my vision just like glazes over. Like I don't look at detail. I'm like, oh, are there elbows there?
But
I don't know.
he's drawn a sexy tentacle cover, but like as though Meggan is on a Zoom call and has just chosen that for the background.
Yes.
Like,
so
wild.
what I think it is, I think there are 3 bespoke layers to this cover. The first being the tentacle background.
Sure.
The third layer, the top layer, being the head and bust of a model.
Yes.
Because those are all of one piece. And
Mhm.
then the middle layer is the arms and stomach and legs, which are so clearly not connected to the, like, from the shoulders to the chest area of Meggan. Like they are very much, yeah, we're going to add those in post. And it
How
doesn't
long would
work.
that right arm be if we could actually see the wrist and the hand?
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's out there, man. It's shooting right out. It doesn't even fit. It's
also,
crazy.
and I don't want to be the guy who is commenting on this on a podcast, but the breasts are so insane on this that it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's
The cleavage doesn't make physical sense.
She's flying in the defiance of the weight of those breasts. Like we know that she's strong because she's still able to support her neck in this position.
Because with the way that she's flying, like, look, it's just like the angles are all wrong.
So that's the cover.
I don't want to sound like I'm hating on boobs in general. It's just, just these particular ones drawn by Greg Land. I really want to be clear.
Yes. So do we want to talk about the Captain Britain story or the Meggan story first? I feel like the Captain Britain story doesn't have a lot to offer. It's basically Captain Britain and the MI-13 playing cricket, and I don't recognize who anybody is, but it does have some. You have one of.
Do
the
you not even recognize Fazia?
I don't know
Faiza?
any of these. I don't know who any of these characters are out of costume.
There's Faiza Hussein, who rules. Actually, she has the sword Excalibur.
Okay.
Adam,
What book is this from MI-13?
It's from MI-13.
Yeah,
you would like Faiza Hussein. She rules. She's the best character in this. She's a doctor, and she's a doctor who can take apart people's bodies, like in layers. Like they turn into one of those flip book with the transparencies.
Whoa.
Where you like peel off each layer, and it's like the muscular structure and then the vascular systems and all that. It's dope as all get out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, I can read. I did recognize that these characters were different characters and that they had names. I never encountered any of them before, and they're all in plain clothes, well, cricket clothes. So it was not the easiest. But it does have some Meggan Captain Britain flashback stuff.
Well, I mean, I feel like the things I have to say about this story relate to some of the things I'm going to say about the other story, which relates to the sort of the interior monologue of Meggan versus Brian. Like, I think the characters are well written in this, but in a way that reflects the toxicity of both of them.
Yes.
Once again, like Brian has a little moment of insight here, I think, where he talks about Meggan relating to Kurt because Kurt is this proud outsider and they had a bond, whereas, Brian's just this white bread guy and what can he offer? And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But then his conclusion is, well, 2 things. He turns it into this total ego trip for himself. He's just like, man, I wonder where Meggan is right now. Is she seeing someone else? Even though he knows she disappeared through this portal he was just like, yeah, maybe she's just seeing someone else in that hell dimension. I mean, he doesn't know where she is, but still the idea that like, maybe she's just dating elsewhere. I'm like, okay, first of all, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then second of all, he's like, you know what? Meggan would want me to have fun playing cricket and not think about her. I'm like, oh boy, this does sound like Brian, but also Brian's
Yeah, it's pretty vapid. It's pretty vapid. Because we do have to...
He has enough self-consciousness to be like, Meggan perceived I was vapid. Anyway, she likes that about me.
I had to go back because I didn't know why Meggan was in hell in this issue. And it goes back to House of M when her and Captain Britain were assigned to like close some sort of energy portal.
We're going to read that. If you haven't read it, Adam, we're going to read that comic sometime soon because it's got Chris Pachalo art. It rules.
Does. It didn't make a lot of sense.
No, it's bad, but the art rules.
But Meggan did disappear, and this is where we find out where she is. So the first story in here is Meggan in hell.
Now,
And,
which hell specifically? Because
Well,
I've heard there's many.
It's kind of unclear. She is kind of pulling a magic from Magic Volume 2 in that she befriends some demons and starts a hell uprising against the Lords of Hell. That's kind of what happens in this issue. She also adopts the name Gloriana, which I think was another trading card pseudonym that was given to her.
They tried to use it here, and when you see Meggan these days, people call her Gloriana, which is fine, but it's also like, it's been 40 years. She's Meggan. You just got to accept it.
I mean, there's a retelling of her backstory here, which doesn't really make any sense.
No.
But, whatever.
What to you, what doesn't make sense about it, Anna? Expand on that, please.
Well, there's a thing where it references the Jasper's Warp, like, oh, I was in a concentration camp for a while, and then I got liberated, but she's drawn as her, blonde, pretty Meggan self when she's liberated, and that's not something that happened until much later.
Right.
So that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then there's the thing where, after that, she turns into a werewoman, as though there was this interstitial period where she was
wait, are you guys still there? Did you freeze?
Conventionally blonde, pretty Meggan, and then reverted to werewolf form. So none of that happened like that, but whatever.
Yeah, the backstory stuff doesn't really make sense or jive with the Captain Britain stuff. It's a really weird thing of her shape shifting on the first issue on the what is this, the fourth page, as a child. And I don't
kind of becoming a Romani stereotype, I think, in response to the hatred of others.
Did not like
yes.
that. Did not like
the
that.
mileage on the effectiveness of that, I think, is going to vary. Would be the most charitable
right.
thing I could say about that.
I would say that I understand what they are going for here, whether they should be doing that or not, or whether that's the right choice. I'm not going to be the one to make that call.
It's an odd comic to try and do something that visually insensitive, but I understand what they're going for. I just don't think it pulls it off.
It's giving Kitty Pryde trying to make a point about racism in the 80s vibes.
Yes, very much so. We also, you and I had some conversations about the Lords of Hell, which I had previously encountered in X Furnace and some other places, but you in particular, Anna, had some questions about Dormammu being on the Lords of Hell.
The Dread Lord?
Because you said what?
Well, he's not a demon and he doesn't rule a hell dimension. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. And having consulted the Marvel Wiki, I am correct about that. But he is part of the Lords of Hell, but
he's
neither a demon nor a hell ruler.
Yeah, he's one of the 14, right?
Yes, he's the ruler of the dark dimension, but he is not a demon per se.
See,
He's not a demon.
I wouldn't define him as a demon. I would just define him as a bad guy who is from another dimension, because it's not a hell dimension. Like, people don't get sent there because they did something bad. It's just another dimension that happens to be scary.
Would you call? Well, okay, this brings up an interesting point. Is Clea a demon? Because she is also one of the 14. Clea Strange, Doctor Strange's wife.
Yeah.
Well, and Hela is on here as well, who does rule.
Hela rules a hell. She's not a demon.
Hell. Yeah, I don't know. Like, the Lords of Hell, all we're trying to say is the Lords of Hell is kind of like an ill-defined group. Like, it's
all of the Satans, and Belasco said that he's not invited.
I just don't think Dormammu is a Satan. I think he's just a villain who looks Satan-y.
I mean, yes, but what is a Satan but a villain that looks Satan-y? Like, here's who on.
I thought you'd have thoughts about this. Like, I thought you'd be interested in sort of defining what counts as a hell dimension, because I don't think the dark dimension is a hell dimension.
Here's what I would say.
Like, the negative zone is not a hell dimension. So
Annihilus
doesn't belong on here.
Hold on. Let's.
Oh, we got him.
If you got it. If we are going to taxonomize this, I would say that the Lords of Hell, very specifically, are the ones who are playing the role of mostly a Western devil or Satan character, which would be like Satanish. Definitely a Satan. Dormammu very, very often positioned at least as a Satan. Mephisto, definitely a Satan.
I don't think Dormammu is a Satan. Like, I mean, he's not somebody who's like punishing sins or doing any of those Satan things. He just happens to be an evil guy who like is on fire. Like, he's just a magic dude.
Okay, I'm just going to read from you a line from Guardians of the Galaxy 16 that Al Ewing wrote, and Al Ewing knows from Satan's. It's, "Know me, for I am Dormammu, he who comes from the outer dark, he who has waited eternities to possess your frail universe. Look upon my visage and no fear. Hear my words in your soul and feel it crumble. I scream blood and murder at your weak stars, and my screams are the armies of hell." That's a thing a Satan would say.
Yeah.
I also think that's a thing that a nihilist would say, and we're saying that he's not a Satan.
All right, we're getting off track here. I do.
Hold
think
on, we
there's
have to
room
talk
for
about the
debate
other Hell
about this.
Lords. We have to mention the other Hell Lords. There's Mephisto, there's Hela, and then there is Blackheart. Pluto is also here, but he was not invited to the Hell Lord party, and he's not happy about it. Missing are, of course, Belasco and Nightcrawler's dad.
Yes. There are a variety of people who are Hell Lords on other times, but we only see this.
Name
Anyway,
another Hell Lord. Name one more Hell Lord. Name any other Satan, Adam.
that we haven't talked about so far.
Yeah, name another Marvel Satan. Name one.
Hellstrom.
Damian Hellstrom.
Agreed, but he's not there because his dad's there. Satanish is there.
We said Satanish. We said,
And that's why Satana's not there either.
We said Belasco, who was on it in X-Furnace. Who am I missing? I mean, there's got to be. Oh,
I was asking if there was other Satans.
Yeah, Zarathos from Ghost Rider.
No, because that's a Satan that works for Mephisto-ish. We're not going to. You know my feelings on Zarthos. I don't think. I don't think that we need to get into the Ghost Rider having devils. Like, he can just be a bad guy. Apparently, there is a Lucifer, which makes sense, but not
Marvel does have a Lucifer,
but not that Lucifer. This is the Lucifer from the Christian Bible. That was in the that was in a Ghost Rider comic, but maybe it. Well, okay, fine. We don't need to talk about all of this.
No. Listen, the important part of this story is that Dormammu, like, kind of forces Meggan to really confront her feelings of anger and transforms her into this sort of monstrosity that's kind of swamp thingy. And this is probably, I think, the most successful part of this story, is that this swamp thing version of Meggan is the thing that leads the revolution to begin with in Hell. What I'm a little less clear on is that eventually what does inspire the minions of Hell even further to start taking down some of the lords of Hell is that she remembers being happy with Brian. And this little piece of happiness is what all of these hell creatures are like, oh, that's what happiness is. I need that in my life. So I'm going to like destroy hell or whatever. I don't know if I buy that part as much.
That makes sense to me for a very specific reason. So I've been reading The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky.
Yes.
And the elder in that, Elder Zosima, who Aloysia is interning under, essentially. That's the youngest of the Brothers Karamazov. Well, the youngest of the official Brothers Karamazov, not the potential bastard brother.
I can't wait to hear how you tie this in. Go ahead.
I'm with you. Let's go.
The brother Karamazov is really a lot of Dostoevsky arguing about what is good and holiness and righteousness in his.
Oh, I've read the book.
religion.
I'm just curious how you're going to tie it back to whether Meggan being happy is a good justification for
Like,
it.
Adam, I've read it. I'm a man of
No.
culture, says Adam.
I know Dostoevsky. Adam, who refused to finish our War and Peace book club, is like, no, Dostoevsky, that's for me. I'm not going to deal with Tolstoy over there. Friggin' proletarian.
That's pretty accurate. Go ahead. You were saying
Insane because Tolstoy. Both of Tolstoy's novels are better than anything I've read from Dostoevsky. But still, he said, the elder says, what is hell? I think hell is the suffering of no longer being able to love. And that is a very common Western Christian idea of hell, specifically if you struggle with the idea, as Dostoevsky did, of a loving God being willing to submit people to eternal hell and damnation and torture.
Oh, I don't disagree with the idea that she could inspire people with happiness. I'm
inspiring
thinking
people with the specific nature of her love for Brian.
Her love for Brian. That's
like,
yeah.
This
okay,
was
no, that's insane.
That's what I got.
This was the
tripped up
page
on.
I got hung up on in this comic, and Adam and I both had it open for a second. It's the one where Meggan is having the picnic flashback to her relationship with Brian and how great it is. And like, let's just think about some of the ways that she describes her relationship here. So he saw what I was, knew it, loved it, and so he helped me make it. He only let me down when I let him down because he's just a man. And so with him, I was just a woman. And I was like, these are the thoughts of someone in an abusive relationship. Like, oh, he was only cruel to me because I deserved it. Like, that's not love, girlfriend. This is a deeply problematic version of love.
It also feels weird when not 10 pages before this, she is talking about how everyone, when they first saw her and him together, were like, oh, he's robbing the cradle. He is a bloody pedo. Like, that's...
Yeah, they really double down on that.
Which is a deeply problematic thing. Meggan's original age, like, they kind of retconned this softly, but her original age was that she was like a teenager and he was in his 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I get that sometimes it's like, hey, look, they're like I said, OTP, they're together forever now. Maybe in recollections of their relationship, if you really don't want to unpack like the messiness of you had a very deeply problematic start, but now you are in a generally healthy relationship and what that means and how you deal with that, that's a story there. But if you're not going to do that and you just want to like pave it over and say, no, that didn't happen, fine. But don't convince me that this was a beautiful, perfect relationship and then also remind me of the messy stuff without unpacking it.
Yeah, because this is reminding you of the deeply problematic nature of it, and then just trying to fix it with Meggan giving this little internal monologue that, again, is deeply problematic. Like, especially that line of, like, he was only mean to me when I deserved it, which is not, I'm paraphrasing what it says here, but, like...
You're not paraphrasing that much.
That set off, like, alarm bells for me.
It's close. It's close.
He only let me down when I let him down. That's an insane line.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is a very, very strange story in general. You know, you could have put Meggan anywhere. It didn't have to be hell when she went through just like a ball of light or whatever. And then she leaves and encounters Dr. Doom to continue her story, but then just leaves hell in chaos. So it's just this one standalone thing.
Hold on. You can't be talking about...
She set up a protectorate and like orders and everything.
But does this come back?
I mean, not really.
Is this an ongoing thing where she will like lead the
armies? Well, actually, no. You need to read the next arc. That's called of the comic called Hell Comes to Birmingham. That does play into Captain Britain and MI13.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I'm glad that continues because it felt kind of abruptly like, we're done with this. You know?
No,
I did not enjoy this.
That being said, you talking about how Meggan goes into a place, causes chaos, and leaves, does not grok with earlier when we're talking about how great it would be if Meggan was a little chaos demon gremlin girl. Sometimes, like you have to appreciate women's wrongs, Adam. You can't just have them be messy when you want them to.
I like this in that in the same way that I enjoyed Magic Volume 2, you know, the idea of this uprising against the Lords of Hell is fun. I don't know if it's as successfully accomplished here, you know, especially because the motivations behind it seem very odd.
I think that there's not something genuine about Meggan's psychology in this comic. And I mean, I think that's understating it. But I mean, there's a thing going on here where she transforms into a very monstrous version of herself and then into another version of herself. We don't get any of her reaction to any of this. So like the only, again, sort of internal parts are things like this page about her love for Brian, which here's the thing about a page like this. If this, like you were just saying, Zach, I'll corroborate you, if that was meant to be deeply problematic, that's interesting. I don't think it is. I think he's like, this is
Right.
what true love looks like. And I'm like, oh boy, it's not though. And that's why it's a problem.
I get you on that. Also, this is not the best story about all of the Hell Lords being overthrown. It's not the worst because Peter David wrote one. But
Yeah,
Strong Guy, that's the
Strong Guy
Hell
was
Lord.
on
That's the Hell Lord we forgot. Yes.
Yeah. King of Hell.
No,
So-
the best one Kieran Gillen wrote, and if you haven't read Loki tricking all of the Hell Lords in Journey into Mystery, it's arguably Kieran Gillen's best Marvel work.
That sounds fun. So at 255, we have Magic Volume 2. I think this is far worse than that.
Yes.
This is worse than Magic Volume 2. This is probably better than the other Captain Britain and the MI13 story we have on here, though.
That's pretty low, though, right? Where is that at?
No, it's at 552.
Oh, you got me worried.
Oh my goodness. The tension is the list.
Oh, that's why I couldn't
flawed.
search it. There's a colon in between MI and 13. All right. So
Okay,
you think
well, I'm
that's better
sorry for
than
giving
this?
the actual textual title
that's my fault. That's my fault. This is not as good as Ghost Rider, Wolverine, Punisher, The Dark Design at 567.
You
Yes,
guys, this is a bad comic. You got to go down the list here.
Yeah.
We have a process. We're getting there.
Yeah, but
Yes,
hold
you're
on a
right,
sec.
you're
All
right.
right, 7. This is not better than the first appearance of Wolverine. It's 701.
You're right.
Is this better than the Dawn of M-Tech at 800? It's not better than Pride and Wisdom at 801, is it?
I don't think so.
I mean, I hate
think
that
it's
series, and I thought this was worse than that.
This one has Adrian Alfona. You know I love Adrian Alfona.
So is it better
But
than
this-
Pride and Wisdom, Zach?
No, it's not.
You
better
know
than
I hate Pride.
It's better than
Pride and
Wisdom Max. It's not better than Pride and Wisdom.
All right, where's Wisdom Max?
It's at
Okay.
826. Though
All right, so we're
think
in
about
the-
Wisdom Max sometimes, so that's a weird one for me. Is it better or worse than Slingers number 9?
I don't think it's as good as Slingers number 9, which has the hilarious thing of Nanny killing that kid's mom in the parking
Ricochet.
lot in an ice cream
Ricochet.
truck.
His name's Ricochet.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey,
Okay.
fun fact. Apparently that new Spider-Man TV show that looks like some of the worst, like character design, great. Actual animation looks like garbage. That new one apparently has the Slingers in it.
Oh, fun. But not Nanny.
Is it fun? Adam,
If
is it
Nanny's-
fun that the Slingers are on television?
I'm not going to watch it either way, but I mean, if Nanny's there, that might be fun.
Adam, if Nanny was there, we would know. Someone would tell us. Someone would tell us.
This is better than Quest Probe at 824. Is it better than that Deadpool and the Mercs for Money IVX story at 823?
Yes, because I bought that one and I was mad about it. So because I
Great.
didn't spend money for this comic, it can go below Slingers and above that.
All right, so this is our new 823. This is Captain Britain and MI13 Annual Volume 1, Number 1. And that was cool. Thank you. Who are we thanking again for this episode?
We're thinking, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. I hope you find your dad if you've lost your dad.
You think Buddy gets that joke a lot from Elf?
Oh,
Like,
I'm
do
sure
people say
Buddy's
that
really
to him
annoyed
all
with
the
that.
time.
I'm sure Buddy does not care for that joke. In
you
fact,
find
Buddy,
your
I'm sorry for
dad.
that.
Oh.
But thanks, Mr. Narwhal. I don't even like the movie Elf all that much. I just think that
Oh.
line reads really good.
I love
just
it,
don't
but
care
that is
for
one of the
Elf.
best. That's okay. You don't have to like it, Zach. It's not even Christmas.
I don't.
Yeah, it's okay.
I have
So-
mixed feelings about Christmas. So
We have to thank our third chair today, Dr. Anna Peppard. Thank you for being here.
I love how that's become a thing.
What?
Like, I don't know, like me saying doctor and now.
But you are.
is that
You
not
got
your? Is that not your
respect
full
on the
name?
name?
Yeah, I swear Adam doesn't call me this in private. I promise. I promise.
We're on.
I feel
we're on
like
the air.
I feel like when I have met when I've been in the same room as Anna, I have led with, "Hey, it's Dr. Anna Peppard."
Yeah, it's Dr. Anna Peppard.
I
We all
love
know
it.
this.
I love the respect. Thank you guys.
Look, you worked really hard. You worked really hard on that
I
degree.
did work
we gotta,
hard. I did.
we gotta put that out there.
What have you
Anna-
been working on?
Yeah. What do you want to plug?
You mentioned that I wrote a piece about Alpha Flight and conflicts between Canada and the US and Marvel Comics over at Comics XF. That'll be a couple weeks old by the time this episode comes out. You can always listen to the perennially relevant Oh Gosh, Oh Golly, Oh Wow podcast if you want more mega content. We had a great conversation with the scholar Dr. Esther Dadao about shapeshifters when we did that Excalibur number 28 on that podcast. It's a great episode, so go check that out if you want more Meggan content. And you can find me on Blue Sky under my name and Google me if you want more. And that's about it.
It's good. That's good.
Adam, do you have anything you need to plug?
Well, I just want to note that this week, Comics XS is putting all of its X-writers together to start covering X-Manhunt. That includes me because I'm on Uncanny X-Men Detail with Austin Gorton. So check that
Do you
out.
know how hard it is for me when they're saying that, hey, we're going to put Maggot in this story? And I'm like,
Matt, you're like, eh.
I thought you were going to
get
say
to it.
how difficult it is for you that it's called X-Manhunt and it's not about Nick
X-Man.
Gray, because I'm still
waiting.
Still hopeful.
Yeah.
I'm going to not say anything.
Is he Prisoner X?
No.
It's
no,
still
no,
possible.
In fact, I don't know that. Wait, does X-Manhunt come out at this point yet?
It's not out yet. It comes out on
As
Wednesday.
we have recorded. Great. So we're gonna cut me saying that I've seen some pages. Nate Gray's not in it. The pages look fine that I've seen.
No, Nick Gray's not in this comic. You don't have to cut that out. We all know that.
It's not,
No,
It's not even a question.
wild baseless
But I-
speculation.
I
Yeah.
think there's like a 50-50 shot that. So cut that
Okay.
one out. But
Hey, that's fun. Other than that, follow on social at America on Blue Sky and Instagram. Zach, what are we doing next week?
we're gonna talk about magic because we want to.
Yay.
It's
Also
fun.
because
We're
we had a
gonna talk
request.
about. Well, yes, but we always want to talk about Magic. Magic, who has had the biggest glow up in like people knowing who she is since, I don't know, Deadpool like 20 years ago.
Maybe.
Like I think
Sure.
it's at that level legitimately. Like people just know who Magic is. She's someone that is in every video game.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And like I love that for her. I have more than I only have one piece of Magic art on my wall. But I do love Magic and she's great. But until then, folks, Anna, thank you so much. And this has been Battle of the Autumn. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!